Hey, everybody. Let's see, let's stop that. That should help a little bit. All right. Well, I do believe I am live. Finally, as I bump my entire setup here. Hey, everybody, what's up? Good Sunday morning. At least we're still in the morning phase here in fabulous Las Vegas. Hope everybody's doing well this morning, or as well as can possibly be expected. Got a few things to chat about today. It was an active week in pop culture-y stuff, maybe more behind the scenes than anything else. Dude, let me tell you something. I don't know if you're on Twitter, X. If you are, and if you have any interest in role-playing games, you probably saw that artwork from the new version of D&D floating around. I genuinely was tired of seeing it, but look, I mean, Wizards of the Coast can do whatever they want to do. They own the property, but I mean, if you're making something, look, if I owned the Dungeons and Dragons IP and I put out the game of checkers and called it Dungeons and Dragons 7th edition, I can legally do that. It's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's checkers. It's not D&D. Just isn't. There's a certain style, there's a certain reality to these kind of games. And they've stretched the D&D game pretty freaking far over the years from what it started as. Some of the stuff that's coming out now, I don't know what it is really designed to do or who it's, I mean, it obviously it appeals to some folks. God bless them. Does it feel like D&D? Not really. It really doesn't. I couldn't tell you about the rules in the newest editions. I don't know, and I don't frankly care. That all aside, what was really funny to me, there's Lady Gwendolyn, yeah. There probably is a D&D checker set. They used to slap D&D on everything for a while. But what got me was some of the folks who rose to the defense of that kind of made themselves, well, they kind of revealed themselves to be very new to the hobby. And people sometimes refer to them as tourists, and they might be, or they might just be really, really new to the hobby. But I tend to be, if I'm out on social media, somebody makes a big statement about something. I like to check my facts before I respond if I feel like responding. Because, you know, as much as you might know about a topic, you might not know everything about the topic. You don't want to come off looking stupid. So, a couple fellas talked about not caring for that and how it's really not the game it used to be. One of whom was Robert J. Kuntz, and the other was Sandy Peterson. And a very bright person decided to, and it might have been different people for each of them, decided to let him know that, yeah, obviously, tell me you've never played D&D or role-playing games without telling me you've never, yeah. So, the Sandy Peterson in question is the guy who wrote Call of Cthulhu and quite a few other things. And, of course, Robert J. Kuntz was there with Gary Gygax kind of at the beginning. Probably not going to find anybody at this point alive on planet Earth who knows more about the inner workings of the creation of D&D. He's Robillard. If you know who Robillard is, well, then you probably know a little bit about D&D history. Hilarious. Same thing happened. The guy, I guess maybe he's the artist on Absolute Batman, post a thing of Batman murdering an ICE agent. Disgusting, frankly. It really is. And, you know, I don't know who this dude is. Screw him. You're a creep. just to put your politics into this fictional character, but also to have him doing something out of character. Maybe it's not out of character for absolute Batman. I don't know. I absolutely don't give a shit about absolute Batman, to be frank. I don't like the art, and I don't like the attitude, and it's so overplayed and over freaking done. You know, we're going to do the superheroes, but they're going to be really grim and dark and mean. Wow. Can't believe you thought of that 40 years after Frank Miller did. But at any rate, I don't like to get too mean, but it does piss me off. So somebody made one of Batman having taken out a couple Antifa people, right? Who do burn things and punch people and do criminal things. Didn't kill them. He had like knocked them out, which is something, frankly, you could see Batman doing. You know, also, if Batman ran into corrupt police officers doing something, he'd probably take them out too, because Batman's about law, order, justice, etc. So Chuck Dixon had reposted this, and apparently Chuck Dixon's never read a Batman comic either. And of course, he was a writer on Batman, helped create Bane, etc. So it's like Dean Kuntz's brother. No, they spell it differently. They spell it differently, or maybe he is. I don't think he is though. You can find him on Twitter, and he's got some. You know, Kuntz definitely has some takes on things. He's not a neutral guy, and he's not afraid to say what he thinks. But at any rate, just thought it was funny, like pegging these people as not knowing anything, you know, who obviously do. So if you're going to get in and argue, do your research a little bit. You know, maybe throw their name into Google and see what they might know about things, or hell, you could even just click their name to look at their account, like on X, and it would probably give you an idea of who they were and what they've done and their history in these hobbies, you know, and also just accept that different people like different things. Look, I know I just mocked absolute whatever. I don't like it. I have no interest in it whatsoever. But if other people are having a good time with it, God bless, go for it. Enjoy. If that's like up your alley, that's great. I don't really care. I don't need to own a hobby that I'm in. I just dip in and I get what I get. You know, I get the stuff that I like. And if it's stuff I don't like, I don't. But some of the obnoxious crap is really getting on my freaking nerves. You know? Figure stuff out before you open your mouths online, boys and girls. It's probably a good idea for you. All right. So now that I am done ranting about nonsense, let's maybe look at some, well, I was going to say more pleasant things, but this actually, it isn't pleasant. It is and it isn't, but it mostly isn't. And that is, this week we saw the passing of Drew Struzan, who was very famous for movie posters that he created from the 80s through the 90s, and maybe a little beyond that. Book covers as well. I think most of us have seen the Back to the Future series that he drew. He had a really impressive style. A good blend of the real, especially in terms of the actors' likenesses, but also the unreal. I mean, you could see there the fantastic look at, you know, the time machine, the light, the fire, etc. So good at doing this stuff. And I grabbed a few examples here and there. I had this poster, and this is like the art. It doesn't have all the, you know, the wording on it, but I had this thing up in my room for a long time, probably until I, you know, hooked up with the wife, I would think. Yeah, and you're right, Ramy. A lot of folks definitely kind of, you know, tried to work somewhat in this style, a little different, but you know, they learned from the guy. He was great at these sort of montage type shots. Yeah, I had this up forever, man. I loved it. I remember getting this when I went to see the movie. They were selling the posters in the lobby, which they used to do, and people bought them, by the way, because they were so damn cool. I think that's where I got this. And it was a big poster. It was a big one. Got Big Trouble in Little China. Just amazing stuff that this guy did. I would agree with that, Ramey. I think a lot of his stuff should probably be in the Smithsonian. But it also really speaks to the lost art of movie posters. These images are not only beautiful, but I mean, they're somewhat enticing as well. Like, what the heck is going on with this thing? You got Kurt Russell there in character. You got, the damsel in distress. You got, okay, is that like Golden Gate Bridge in the background? So we're in San Francisco. There's just all these little elements, right? It's almost like a preview of the film. It's enough to make you wonder what you're going to see when you go inside. Here's the Goonies image. And we don't really get that anymore. They use Photoshop to make their movie posters. A lot of big actor faces, and let's be honest here, we don't have movie stars like we used to have movie stars. Most of these folks have shown they can't sell tickets for films. There's not a big audience who says, oh, so-and-so's in something, I'm going to this movie. So if your primary selling point is, look at who the actors are in this film, may not really be that much of a selling point. I mean, for example, who knew who most of the people in the Goonies cast were? Most of these kids. Well, I mean, they know Josh Brolin now because he's had quite a career in Hollywood, like Thanos, etc. A lot of these folks you'd seen in things, maybe, but none of these kids were movie stars, right? So they're not selling the Goonies based upon their faces. What do we see? We see this chain of kids hanging, danger, etc. It looks pretty cool. That sells the movie, right? And I think they need to get back into that. But nowadays, they're going to probably start using AI to do some of this kind of stuff, which is sad. But the movie posters, I don't know that they sell the movies anymore like they used to. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people who, if they see a Tron Ares poster and they see Jared Leto, will go, oh, I want to go see this. I love him. There are people who do, for sure, but not like, a lot of people, which is the problem. But something like this poster, look, come on. That entices you into a freaking theater. And that's what you want to do. You want to throw the widest net you can and grab as many people as you can, get them to buy tickets, and get them to go in. And what gets me too is, Corey Feldman. But I mean, even then, Corey Feldman, I don't think in Goonies it was even like the big Corey's thing, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. I think that was even still a few years away, maybe, from being like a mega draw. And it would only be a mega draw even then for girls age, I don't know, the tweens and maybe a few of the younger teens who were into them. It wouldn't draw, 30, 40-year-old guy into the theater, but that might, oh, what's that? That looks kind of cool. That might be good. So, then we got Never Ending Story. And what gets me too is, you got, losing my train of thought a little bit. Oh, so you got they moved to photos because they don't want to pay a guy like him to paint. Got to save money. And you're kind of going, okay, what was he charging for a commission? Because, these budgets for films are getting more and more and more bloated. And hard to see why. A lot of it doesn't seem to be on the screen. I think a lot of it's just because of mismanagement, but we can't afford to pay an artist like Drew or like others who are out there, because you do see a lot of people making their own indie versions of movie posters, which are often very cool. There's folks out there who can do the art. We don't pay them. We don't want to pay them. All right, so what are you going to save? 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand? When you're paying some actor that nobody really gives a shit about $10 million to be in your movie? All right, you couldn't find 100 grand for something to advertise your film that might actually get people's butts in the seats. Because the actors ain't doing it. Failure after failure after failure after failure after failure for the last few years. But we got to save some money. So I'm sure they're going to probably now shift to, like I said, to the AI art. Yeah, Neverending Story. This is funny. Like, so back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, they were making some Roger Rabbit short subjects. They did 3 of them. Tummy Trouble, Roller Coaster Rabbits, and the one where they're like in the woods at in a park. And they would put these before movies. And they would put them before movies that I didn't want to see. But my wife and I wanted to go see the shorts. So we'd get the ticket, we'd go watch a short, and then she'd be like, all right, let's get the heck out of here. And I'd be like, no, I paid a ticket. I'm going to see this movie, whether I want to or not. And one of those movies was Neverending Story 2. Okay. So saw some of the Neverending Story 2, and I was like, I didn't really like that at all. I think that was terrible. I'd never seen Neverending Story, so my assumption was, kind of the same thing, probably no good at all. And so some years back, when my daughter was younger, I'd come up with the concept of Shitty Movie Sundays, where we would pick out a movie that we thought was probably going to be kind of shitty, and we'd watch it. Obviously a movie I'd never seen before, or that my daughter had never seen before, etc. And so this was one of the ones we put in, and it was like, oh, yeah, this is pretty good. This is a pretty legit film. I was totally wrong about this one. That was kind of the point of it, was like, if it's really bad, we can kind of maybe just make fun of it. There were a couple that were so bad we couldn't even make fun of. But the point is, like, you throw them in, and you might find out they're actually pretty decent. And there were 2 or 3 that I was like, oh, that was actually good. I was wrong. My impressions were wrong on that one. That was one of them. Yeah, I think Raimi did do Last Starfighter. I know I could have probably picked dozens more, but I kind of did a quick search for a few. There was one that he did. I don't know what this was for, but you got the Star Trek crew. I think he did a nice job there. Yeah, exactly. The horse. I mean, I was a grown man when I saw it. I was in my late 40s, and I was like, wow, that's powerful. That was a good movie. That was a seriously decent. That was a good movie. There's a Star Wars image that he did. So also, and somebody had brought this up on, I saw on X, a lot of lesser known movies got posters from him. This is The Frisco Kid with Gene Wilder and Harrison Ford. If you've never seen The Frisco Kid, it's a pretty decent little movie. It's not the greatest comedy ever made, but it's got some really good moments in it. The idea is that Gene Wilder is playing a rabbi who, I want to say, is headed to San Francisco. And he's from Europe, just recently arrived in America, arrives in New York, and from his perspective as a European at this period of time, San Francisco, it's probably a couple days ride from New York. Not a problem, no big deal. And of course, it is a big deal. He ends up getting robbed and hooking up with Harrison Ford, who plays a sort of, kind of a Han Solo. He's a scoundrel. He's a criminal, a gunfighter. And he somehow becomes dedicated to getting this guy across the country. It's a good flick. It's a good flick. Yeah. Okay, yeah. You might be seeing it. Yeah, it's a good flick. You should watch it if you never have. But so even Frisco Kid, and there were a few other, obscure ones that he did that, I just brought that magic to it. Just beautiful images. Beautiful images. They're going to try to replace artists with AI. I know people say, No, it's going to be a tool. No, it's not going to be a tool. It's not going to be a tool. The more you use it as an artist, as a tool, the better it's going to get and be able to replace you. You are training your replacement. They will do the AI. It is cheaper. It is quicker. They won't have any arguments. They will hire people to make this stuff out. And the fact that they've been making movie posters that really aren't that good for the last 20 years, they don't care if it's not that good. If it's cheaper, they'll do it. And when they do, it's going to start hollowing out the profession of artists. We got all these guys and gals who have been making art for years and years and years, and they're very professional and they're very good, and they're going to probably still be able to sell their stuff. But you got younger people who need to be able to sell their work at a low price, not super, super low, but a low price to get started. When I was making role-playing game stuff, I hooked up with artists who were, either younger or newer to doing it professionally, because I didn't have a lot of money to spend. I just didn't. And so they had more affordable commission rates. And I'd commission them, et cetera. And I saw a few of them grow to where they were hitting bigger commission rates because, they got their stuff out there and they were getting more practice. They were getting better at what they did and finding other customers as well, which is awesome. But when you eliminate that, and that's what AI is going to do, why am I going to pay somebody, a relatively small amount for a commission when I can get it almost for free from AI and in the style that I want or something close to it? And and so if these young artists are not getting the opportunity to hone their skills and find an audience, there's not going to be young artists. They're just going to use AI themselves and learn to do prompts. They're not going to build the skills. And by the way, if they don't have the artistic skills, the stuff they're going to be generating with prompts is not going to be that good. It's going to have a lot of problems. And you're going to be hollowing out what's left. As the older artists age out and go away, you're not going to have the artists to replace them, say, a decade or a decade and a half or 2 decades away. And it's going to impact everybody. It's going to just make for an uglier world. Well, there you go. Ramey Butler, my youngest boy, does commission pieces online. He quit because of AI. He was mad. I mean, I would say, keep drawing, and try to get it out there. Don't give up completely. But I get it, man. I think right now you're getting this wave of AI and this push, and I think there will be a pushback later of people kind of going, kind of sick of this, man. It kind of sucks. And I think people will start discovering real art and real artists. So be there for that. Keep working on stuff. Don't lose the opportunity to build your skills and everything like that. There will be opportunities for this, folks. It may become more, like we have folks who do custom action figures. We have folks who artisanal bakeries and things of there are folks out there who want the real stuff. They may not be the majority, but they do exist, and you can build a living in that world. It can be difficult, but it can be done. I mean, reality is, I was publishing role-playing game books, but that was a small amount of money in my income. I had a real job. I had to. You might have to have a real 9-to-5 job as well as doing your writing or your drawing or stuff. But keep up with it, because there will probably be opportunities for art made by human beings for other human beings, in my opinion. And the AI lawsuits are coming. Yeah, because they stole a lot of art, frankly. No, they just learned from. No, they didn't. They didn't just learn from. They stole it. And they're stealing IPs. That's where the lawsuits are coming from, right? You can't, as an independent human artist, do art of Superman and sell it legally. A lot of people do. Because studios go, okay. But you can't legally do that. The image of Superman is owned by somebody. You can't do that legally. That's what AI is doing. And see, with AI, there's this massive amount of venture capital flowing into it, which means Warner Brothers, what they sue Joe Schmo, who's making Superman commissions and selling them, what do they get nothing. It would cost them money to sue. They could send a cease and desist if they want to. Most of them aren't going to bother. It's fine, whatever. It's just like, Paramount used to understand Star Trek fan films did not hurt Star Trek. It helped keep it healthy and alive. As long as they didn't go too far, which somebody did, it screwed it up for everybody. Most of them are like that. But AI has money. So we can sue AI and we can get a big chunk of cash out of them. So we'll see what happens to those. But yeah, I hope he sticks with it. I really do. Now we had another passing in the last week. Ace Frehley from Kiss, the spaceman, Space Ace, passed away. It's really sad too. He had taken a tumble. I think it was 74. Taken a tumble in a studio and hit his head, and did not recover from that. So God bless him. But Kiss, dude, Pahrump, Utah. No, I mean, I know Pahrump, Nevada is not that far. We've driven out there a few times. I didn't know there was one in Utah too, but it, probably the same origin of the word, Ramey, I would guess, from the Utes and the Paiutes and stuff. We lived in the area. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe is it like maybe southwestern Utah, because that's not real far from Vegas. Cedar City and St. George are not a real long drive away. We've been up there a couple times. They do Cedar City, where they do the Shakespeare Festival, or I think it's Cedar City. My wife will probably chime in on that. We've been up there for that one time. It was fun. Anyhow, so we lost Ace, but Kiss, I was thinking about it. I'm going, if it's from Nevada, I definitely know. I definitely know where he's at. Yeah, we've been out there a few times because we had some folks living out there. Over the hump to Pahrump. There's a little mountain pass you got to go over. You go from Vegas to Pahrump. It's not a major mountain pass, but it's a small one. So I was thinking, though, Kiss, in a way, say musically speaking, probably not as big as like Elvis or the Beatles, when you get down to it. But as a pop culture phenomenon, Kiss was easily as big as Elvis and the Beatles for a short span of time. Obviously, right there, Marvel Comics. Kiss, they had the Halloween costumes. They had the makeup kits. Even if it wasn't Kiss branded, all the makeup kits would have the image of, they would usually call it rock star. It's just a random rock star who looks an awful lot like Gene Simmons as the Demon, or, Paul Stanley, Star Child. You had lunchboxes. You had the Mego figures. By the way, this image from the Mego Museum, I want to point that out. All right, so yeah, dude, your son's not far away at all from us. No, not far at all. Not far away at all. But you had, and what was amazing too is Kiss was not meant for kids. That was probably not their goal when they set out. And it was a huge thing with kids, to the point that for how many years afterwards, kids' cartoons, if you had rock stars, they had to have face paint. Even Jim in the holograms have the face paint going in the Misfits. And that was a pretty good time away from when Kiss was really big. And I don't think Kiss was even in the face paint, but they were, because that's what you do. If you're rock stars, you have the face paint. Later on, it would be mohawks. Well past the point where punk was really a thing. Rock stars in cartoons had to have a mohawk. And usually those slim 80s glasses, I think there's some of those in They get some of that in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're always a little behind. Hey, Finns, you're fashionably late, sure. You missed a silly rant of mine. That was about it. You can catch up with it later. But anyway, yeah, just Kiss was so big. And I think post Kiss, I think the closest we get to that kind of a pop culture impact from bands are the boy bands. With New Kids on the Block, that kind of stuff. Because they were more aimed at younger women, especially, And so you kind of understand the merchandising. But some of the merchandising with Kiss was freaking crazy for what they were. Like, so much kids stuff. And I remember my first exposure to Kiss. I was about, the K-pop scene nowadays, same thing. But it's still kind of, well, I mean, I guess it's not entirely boy bands, but there's a lot of boy bands in the K-pop scene. But I was like about, I'd say 5 or maybe 6 years old. And my mom at that time was a preschool teacher at a Methodist church here in Vegas. And so my sister and I would go with her. It was kind of a good opportunity because she could kind of do childcare with us while she was doing childcare with these preschoolers. It was kind of a combo of, childcare and preschool. And so there were some kids younger and some kids a little older than us too. I mean, some of them were older than preschool. And so there were kids playing with the Kiss figures. And I'm like, what the hell are these? And I was one of those kids sort of on a little bit maybe on the spectrum that I assumed if I didn't see something new and think, oh, this must be new. How cool. I always was like, oh my God, everybody knows what this is except for me. So I'd always be, I wouldn't just jump in. I'd always be kind of quiet, like observing. I must learn the ways of this Kiss so that I don't look stupid and, because I don't know who the hell they are. Now, in retrospect, why I at 5 or 6 would have necessarily known who Kiss was, I don't know. But obviously they were already selling stuff to kids because they had the figures out. But yeah, that was kind of my first introduction to who they were. And I still don't think I really knew who they were. I just thought it was like some crazy kind of action figures, like, I don't know. Are these dudes fighting the $6 Million Man or something? Is this like are these characters from Star Wars that I'm unaware of? I didn't know what they were. But, in Vegas? Yeah, University Methodist on Maryland Parkway. Way back when. It actually, the church just got purchased by UNLV. Because they've been trying to buy up extra land around their campus for expansion type stuff and things like that. So yeah. Yeah, they were Methodist. Yeah, Vegas is actually interesting because it has much more of a foundation in Catholics and in Orthodox Christians than it does in Protestants. Of course, there were always Protestants in Vegas, but, there's the big cathedral on Las Vegas Boulevard. There's old images of showgirls, Catholic showgirls, who would be down, attending Mass, but they're still sort of in costume. Not, they don't have the big feathers on their heads and all that, but they'd sort of be in costume. Of course, wearing an overcoat because you don't want to be like, wearing, something skimpy at church. But they'd run down there to attend Mass and then run back and do their shows and things like that. So yeah, there's a big like Italian, Armenian population in Vegas. There's actually a pretty big, Ethiopian population too. We got a few restaurants. We got the Ethiopian church, some of those in Vegas. Vegas is we're kind of like the last melting pot in some ways in America because, we were founded in, I want to say 1905 or 1906 right around there, with about a population of maybe 5,000 people. And then by 2005 or 6, we had over 1 million people in the valley. So we were the fastest growing city on earth that at that point that had been founded in the 20th century. Now, there could be some in China, that have outstripped us because of China. But so when we were being, populated, it especially kind of kicks up after the 1940s, 30s, 40s. It was like, it wasn't, we weren't so much founded by like the founding fathers, English Protestants and, the Scotch Irish who founded cities through a lot of America. Like it was a later period. So, big Jewish population, of course, a big Mormon population, because they were some of the first into the valley, Spanish, Italian, etc. It's a real mix in Vegas. We're an interesting place. Oh, good for you, Ramey. Yeah, I've actually been definitely flirting with Orthodox Christianity for a while now, and I haven't gone all the way, but yeah, Kiss. I mean, and I'll be honest with Kiss. I know I always go off topic, but that's what I like, so I'll do it anyways. With Kiss, I probably got into the music more in like high school when I was getting into metal. But I didn't own any of the action figures or anything like that. But I mean, Kiss they looked cool, because they looked crazy. That was kind of the fun of the thing. And I think that's why kids got so into it, because of the makeup and all the stage theatrics and stuff. And yeah, anyhow, so, rest in peace, Drew Struzan and Ace Frehley. God bless them. Godspeed. They made their mark. That is for sure. They made their mark on the American psyche. No doubt about it. Yeah, we did have a few of those, Ramey. But a lot of people don't know this, but in the 70s, the FBI chased the mob out of Vegas. So we don't have organized crime here at all anymore. I always laughed at those claims. I'm like going, organized crime is everywhere. You don't think it's still in Vegas. What actually kind of happened was the mob in Vegas kind of went corporate to some degree. They sort of went corporate and, sold a lot of the stuff they had to corporations, but probably in return for stock, and stuff. So they sort of went legit. And there's a lot of old Vegans who will be like, oh, the city was so much better when the mob ran things. Stuff got done and people didn't get away with things, It's like, well, I mean, the mob got away with things, but other people didn't get away with things. It's funny, I mean, I was a kid for most of that period. I was a kid when, what was his name? Tony Spilatro, I think. Did he get convicted or did he go missing? I remember going to school with his kid. I didn't know him, but yeah. So anyhow, but you're not completely wrong. Yeah, the Gaudis, yeah. But Vegas, yeah. Vegas is a bizarre city. It does not make sense. Largely built by federal government money, even though we're probably one of the more libertarian cities on earth. I know the libertarians would always do a conference here every year, and I'm like going, you're against a lot of government like spending and stuff, and Vegas was built on it. Hoover Dam. They expanded what became McCarran International to use in the war. The industrial stuff out in Henderson was built for the war. The Nellis Air Force Base has put a lot of money. So basically, government money and gambling is what built Las Vegas. So we're unlike most cities in America. Okay, so other little news stories. Paramount and Warner Brothers might be merging. Paramount's made some offers. Warner Brothers isn't so sure. It may not even get past government scrutiny at this point, although they've allowed stuff that probably, technically shouldn't have. I mean, it depends on where you stand on that stuff. But, there are essentially laws to keep, too many big companies from merging, and they usually merge anyways. But the interesting thing with this is, pardon me for a moment there, that the rumors are already flying that if Paramount gets in charge, James Gunn is going to be out. Okay. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't when people see me banjo music starts playing. Hey, my ancestry is Scotch-Irish. I talked about my Yosemite Sam ancestors. I know what you mean. I got some hillbillies in my family for sure. But you got to go back a little bit to get really to the hillbilly stuff. But so would Gunn be out? He's basically had, and people, I'm not talking about artistically. That's subjective. But objectively, in a business sense, he's had 3 failures to launch his DC universe. He had a cartoon that didn't get much viewership. He had a Superman movie that lost money at the box office and really, really did not do well. And I did a breakdown, comparing it with other superhero movies that began franchises. And at one point, it looked like it might kind of, and then it kind of, so it and Fantastic Four both really underperformed, even compared to superhero movies that launched franchises but didn't, they didn't do big numbers themselves. It was below them. So I'm not saying it couldn't launch a big, franchise, but not putting the best step forward. And then he had the Peacemaker TV show, which again did not do well in terms of viewership. Okay, if you like those things, it's cool. I'm not, they weren't for me, but I'm not going after them artistically. I'm saying from a business sense, they did not do well. And their next project up is going to be the Supergirl movie, which probably is not going to do as well as the Superman movie. So that probably, unless they really controlled their budget, will probably also lose money. So I think, genuinely speaking, he could be out. But it's hard to say because, Kathleen Kennedy still has a job. Kevin Feige still has a job. And they have enough failures that old Hollywood, they would have been gone. Get out. You'll never work in this town again. That's how they worked. It's like, for them, it's nothing personal. We love you. But you're losing money on Star Wars movies. You got to go. That can't happen. That can't happen. We paid a lot of money for this. It needs to be generating a lot of money all the time. This is your fault. You're out. Go away. So, in all honesty, Gunn probably should have, see Creature Commandos with nudity. And again, you got, some orgies and weird stuff in Peacemaker. Like, you do realize that superheroes are going to always be heavily a kid's brand. 90% of superhero things has been aimed at kids all along. You can make stuff that also appeals to adults, but it's got to be something kids can get a hold of, especially in animation. Now, my initial thought when the DCEU was obviously kind of grinding to a halt, because it never really got off the ground quite the way they wanted it to. They had some successes, but it, as an entity, it had trouble. My thought was, okay, you kind of shut down. And what you do is you do something along the lines of Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, the Teen Titans cartoon from back in the day. You aim it more towards kids, and you get that stuff out there. Brave and the Bold cartoon, same thing. Introduce the characters to a new generation. And while you do that for 5 years or so, when you're done, you start getting back into live action again, because now you got a whole bunch of younger people. And look, maybe you get creative in how you do it. Maybe you're going to have your cartoons, your animation stuff, try to get it picked up and out there, but maybe you're going to do some stuff online as well. Introduce the kids to the characters, a new generation, so to speak. and then shift into doing some live action stuff, but live action stuff that really works from the animation. So it's not like the kids who grew up watching a particular version of Batman in the cartoons then see a Batman in live action and they're like, what the hell is this? That's nothing like what I watch. Make them, work together a little bit. Obviously, you're going to have a little artistic stuff going on there, differences, but that seemed to me like probably a good plan. And they're like, no, screw that. And so they hire a guy who is not mainstream in the least. And that's the problem, I think, is that Gunn did not set out to make a DC universe that people would enjoy. He set out to make a DC universe that James Gunn would enjoy. And James Gunn has tastes that do not translate to a mass audience in the least. He put himself ahead of everybody else. Stupid as hell. You can do that with fringy stuff. You can do that when you're making trauma movies. That's cool. It works because Gunn's weird, but he's got a weird audience out there that'll follow him, and I don't mean weird in a bad way. But he's got a weird audience that will follow along. And if you're talking about movies with relatively small budgets, you're going to make money on them. They're going to be profitable. You could build. But you can't do that when you're spending $250 or $300 million on a movie, right? You got to bring in almost $1 billion, which means you got to sell a shit ton of tickets. It's got to appeal to a mass audience. You pick the absolute wrong person to do it, and you put him in charge. So there's nobody that can rein him in and say, whoa, 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 whoa. How about we don't have an orgy in Peacemaker? Since you're trying to get kids who enjoyed Superman to maybe watch it, or you're suggesting they should, and you're teasing a Superman appearance, which apparently didn't happen or something. I don't know. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy was kind of fun, Yeah, it's weird. So again, you want to make a dirty superhero movie, do a dirty superhero movie, but you got to understand it's not going to have the audience that a clean superhero movie or cartoon or whatever is going to have, right? I was going to drop a name of an old XXX rated one. I won't do that on this stream. But at any rate, so he might be out, in my opinion. But he might also stay in because that's typically the way they make decisions now in Hollywood. They're weird and they don't make sense. And it's why they're losing a lot of money and have a lot of debt that they have to deal with. But anyway, so that was kind of floating around. This one got me. They're talking about a Jetsons movie. All right. Live action. Okay. Man, could be. Maybe. They're pushing or suggesting Jim Carrey as George Jetson. Okay. Jim Carrey's not that young at this point in life. He's a lot older than George Jetson was in the Jetsons. And I thought, how odd is that? But doesn't it also speak to the fact that, okay, well, who's the 30-something actor who's going to play George Jetson? Who springs immediately to mind? Right? Nobody. Now, I don't even think Jim Carrey is necessarily a great choice for George Jetson because the characters aren't quite the same. And George Jetson could get a little goofy, but not really the way that you would get with Ace Ventura or what have you. Carrey's a little more over the top than that. But kind of too old for the role, but who are you picking? Who are you picking? Pedro Pascal? Shall he play George Jetson? Right? It's weird. And I agree, Vince, because it is the Jetsons and the Flintstones too were written with a late 50s, early 60s comedic sense that doesn't necessarily translate to the modern day unless you're like a retro head or you grew up on them. They're very much about they're about middle class concerns. And by the way, not written for kids. They were written more for grown-ups. The cartoony stuff appeals to the kids, but it's, George having trouble with his boss, Mr. Spacely, right? You know, it's Jane having to deal with housework. But then they do it in a funny way where, like, she's annoyed because to do her housework, she has to press 5 buttons and her finger's getting tired. I actually had a friend who went through that with his wife and a Roomba. And I was like, holy shit, dude, there was a Jetsons episode about this. You guys are now animated characters. But, you know, it's a 60s, early 60s sitcom. It's meant for a 20-25 minute runtime, not an hour and a half, because they don't know how to make shorter movies nowadays. It'd probably end up being more almost like a 2-hour film. It's not really built for that particularly well. They've done stuff like that with the Flintstones as well, and they're never as good as the old shorts. It's really, that's what it's designed for. Now, and the people, you know, Jane is played by Penny Singleton, who was in the old Blondie movies, which dovetail beautifully with it. There is definitely a Dagwood and Blondie element to the Jetsons. George is played by George O'Hanlon, he did a series of short subjects called Joe McDokes, where it was like a guy trying to cope with reality, basically, of like, so you want to fix a television set, and he's trying to do something and everything's going wrong, which fits well with George Jetson. They're very much based on those characters. So Jetsons is even almost, it's like early 60s comedy, but it's a lot of stuff from the 40s even coming forward with a generation that was cool with that, you know? Now, I think there's an element in Jetsons that can work, which was coping with the future and future technology and change, because that generation of adults in the early 60s, right, who had, you know, grown up, they fought World War II and stuff like that, they were dealing with some rapid changes in technology that were coming down the pike at that point, like computers and stuff. And I think you could tap into that anxiety with younger people now, right? We just talked about AI screwing things up for people. There's anxiety about that kind of stuff. I think you could tap into that if you're real smart about it, but I don't know if they will be. But it's just the Jim Carrey, I'm going, A, too old, B, probably not quite the right type, but C, probably closer than anybody else on Earth right now. And why is that? Why have you not been able to shepherd along actors, younger actors, who would probably be good for that sort of role? Hollywood's just gotten so weird. Finn says, I'm a big fan of Flintstones, Jetsons, and other HP properties. I have zero interest in a live-action version of any of them. Yeah. I mean, look, that one Spielberg did of the Flintstones. Pardon me. It was kind of fun to see some of the, you know, crazy dinosaur and animal-like things translated to live action with, like, the Jim Henson group doing a lot of that. A lot about the movie, though, didn't really work. Especially Rosie O'Donnell as Betty, like, because there was, at the time that movie was coming out, a lot of us, you know, Gen X guys who were getting older, we had realized that Betty Rubble was like smoking hot at a certain point. And then you give us Rosie O'Donnell as Betty Rubble. It's like, why are you doing this to us? Oh, I had another Jetsons image. Yeah, that was my image for talking about what the show was sort of about at the time. So, we could get Quentin Tarantino to direct the live-action Jetsons. It could be his last movie. No, they got a guy, and I looked him up, and I'm like, I hadn't seen anything that he'd done. I thought maybe Carrie could play Montague Jetson, which was George's great-grandfather, who was a baby boomer. Because people forget, Jetsons was set 100 years in the future. And I want to say Jetsons came out, was it 62? Or earlier than that. I think it was 62. So it's set in 2062. So we're actually getting very close to the actual time period Jetsons is set. In fact, based on his age in the cartoon, George Jetson has already been born. He's Gen Alpha. Jane, I think, was supposed to be 5 years younger than him. Jane might have just been born. Mr. Spacely is probably a late Zoomer, which does explain his attitude, because they like to throw tantrums. No. So, yeah, I know. Anyways, I just thought it was interesting and probably is going to be terrible. But you know what? If they can make a really funny live-action Jetsons and really capture that retro... That's one thing they got to do, by the way. The Jetsons cannot be based on the future of current-day technology. It has got to be based upon the technology of 1960 and what they thought the future was going to look like. It's got to be push button. You can't have the internet. You can't have smartphones. You can't do any of that stuff. It's got to be the retro future if you're going to make it work. If they could do it and make it work, awesome. That'd be great. I don't think so. And I'm kind of with Finn's like, dude, stop. Just stop. Just stop. I did see this, though. Also an announcement. MeTV Toons, if you get it in your area, is going to start showing Mighty Mouse and other Terry Toons cartoons on Sundays. It's including the Mighty Heroes, which I'm prepping a review video of. I rather liked the Mighty Heroes. And the Mighty Mouse New Adventures that Ralph Bakshi did, or Bakshi. I learned it as Bakshi, and I was wrong. And I have a hard time remembering to pronounce his name right. I'm sorry, Ralph. But they're going to be doing the Mighty Mouse cartoon, which I have also reviewed on this channel. So that's showing up pretty soon. And Bakshi was the guy behind the Mighty Heroes as well. When he was still at Terry Toons, he was just getting ready to go independent. And so, in fact, I think he had pitched at that time, or maybe he pitched it to Paramount, a fantasy TV series called T-Wit that they didn't show interest in, but which became the basis of Wizards, which became a big sort of counterculture. Cool anime movie. Hey, Lone Dragon is there. Retro Future is what makes the Fallout games so good. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the same with Star Trek, right? When they make Star Trek The Next Generation in the late 80s, obviously we live in a world where we have computer keyboards and stuff, and we have Windows. And they did manage to bring sort of the Windows idea of touch screens into Star Trek and did pretty good with it. But the original series is based on a completely different view of what computers are going to be like in the future, you know? And so a lot of early Star Trek, it's based on late 60s, mid 60s technology. And you need to sort of go with that and ignore all the development of real technology in the 70s and 80s, you know, because it just doesn't fit. Even though it's set in the future, it's still really set in the past. But anyhow, so MeTV Toons, Mighty Mouse, I don't know if you ever watched any of them. They do a lot of great stuff on MeTV Toons. It's a lot like Boomerang and Cartoon Network and stuff used to be back in the day. A lot of old cartoons, a lot of Hanna-Barbera, ton of Hanna-Barbera. So that's cool. McFarlane Toys and Mattel. So I saw this article in Toy News International. We know that McFarlane is losing the DC license. And Mattel put out a press conference that said, we're going to introduce our new stuff second half of 2026. Okay. But now McFarlane they're talking about stuff they're releasing throughout 2026. So people are going, well, wait a minute. They probably wouldn't both be releasing stuff at the same time, would they? Doesn't seem likely. So there's kind of confusion about, you know, when does McFarlane... McFarlane says he has the license until the end of 2026. So either he's wrong, or Mattel's wrong, or they're both going to have the license for half of 2026. I don't know what they're doing, but just if you're into the toy collecting, something you might want to keep your eyes on, because there's some questions about who has what and when. Speaking of McFarlane, the Guardian figure showed up this week, about a week after I'd pre-ordered it on GameStop. So that moved really, really quick. I didn't expect to necessarily see this guy for a long time. I I really wanted the Red Tornado. That was what I was most looking forward to. I could not get a hold of it, although it might show up later. But I did Guardian. This is basically when Joe Simon and Jack Kirby went from Timely over to National, i.e. Marvel over to DC. They introduced Guardian character, who is kind of Captain America. Kind of. Very similar style to the stories with Guardian. Using Kirby's, if you see my video I did on the Captain America Year 1, you know the style that he drew in. That was translated right into Guardian. And they brought him back a few times. I really dig the character. So, so unfortunately, Red Tornado, I'm hoping it'll show up again sometime later, like those Spider-Man 77 figures. They're all over the place now. You can get them in Amazon. That was a pain in the ass. Yesterday, from the good people at Hasbro, I assume there's some good people at Hasbro, the Doctor Doom figure, I showed off the Ghost Rider figure last stream. So this one showed up. Very nice. I know I got a little bit of reflection here. Let's bring it in close. A lot of cool extras, spell books, and all sorts of weird nonsense for Doctor Doom. Great character. I think it looks good. I haven't taken, obviously, out of the package yet, so I haven't taken a close look at it. Mixed media, so he is wearing cloth, as well as the plasticky, rubbery stuff. So very cool. There's the back. I guess I could show the back of the Guardian package as well. Got the image there of him. Now, I do notice the shield, I think, if there's any flaw to this dude, the shield seems like it should maybe be a little bit bigger. Not massively. Hey, Ramey, welcome back. So not massively, but I think maybe it should be just a tiny bit bigger, but looks pretty darn cool. And then the other thing I got was, I got a couple things actually, but I had pre-ordered or done the crowdfund for a comic series called Jacqueline Jones, which had a real sort of retro, like Dick Tracy look to it to me. Obviously, she's a female police officer, and it looks like a 40s, maybe early, 50s sort of vein. So looking forward to reading through these. I have not gotten to read them yet. There's a little sample. Came with some cool add-ons. There's like a patch, which I'll probably throw in my denim jacket. And I say I'll throw in my denim jacket means maybe I'll try to get my daughter to sew it on there. Whole bunch of pictures, some postcardy type stuff, and of course, signed covers. So issues 1 and 2, I got 2 issues of issue 2. Very cool stuff. Looking forward to reading those. Kind of reminds me of a series that Alterna put out from David Lucarelli called Tinseltown, which is a good series. It's he's got two series. I think 4 issues in each. I think it's been a little while since I read it, about a woman who wants to become a police officer in the 1920s in LA, and you can become a police officer as a woman, but it's all desk work, and that's not what she wants to do. So she winds up getting a job as a security guard at a studio. So it's sort of a 1920s Hollywood studio thing, and they pretty much just hire women there for like the tours. So you have, pretty girls dressed up as the security guards, but she's got the skills and manages to foil a couple crimes that are associated with the movies. So it's a fun little series, good series. So that kind of reminds me of it a little bit, but we'll see. And then yesterday, I forgot to pick this up last week. I grabbed the Conan the Barbarian number 25. Now this is completely 100% painted by Alex Horley. I always wanted to say Horsley, I think because of Matt Houston. So written by Jim Zub, painted by Alex Horley. So I was like, I want to get that for sure. I have not read any of the Conans that they've been putting out. But the idea that the entire issue was painted, I thought was rad. We have sort of your cover, back cover. Good stuff. I remember he did some art for the 3rd edition of D&D. So yeah, excited to get that and read it as well. Should I roll through these? Yeah, let's roll through these. Because they're sort of new acquisitions, but they're really new reads. I did finish reading Dracula Book 2, The Brides, from Wagner and Kelly Jones, and good. It's good, and it has a slightly different feel from the first one. And yes, it is for mature audiences only. Definitely for mature audiences only. It's about Dracula acquiring his brides, basically learning how to create, vampiric spawn that retained their intellect. Obviously, it corrupts their souls, but they retain their intellect. Before that, he could create sort of revenants who just wandered around like animals, but that was it. And, Man of War! Ooh. I've done myself a disservice. By not buying more Conans? I know. People kept telling me I should, and I hadn't. I order so much. Are they mail order brides? No, they're not mail order brides. Two of them are willing brides. One of them is not, which was interesting. Puts a lot of character into the brides, for sure. And there's a callback from the first issue that is, kind of upsetting and disturbing. And some interesting stuff in it. It's really written as like a diary of Dracula from his beginnings, learning magic from basically the devil himself, to becoming a vampire, acquiring his brides, and that whole period where he's still in Transylvania. As it ends, and this, I don't think this is a spoiler. This is a book where the spoilers are in how the story unfolds and is told. Not so much in, what's the big reveal at the end? It's not. The reveal at the end is him. He's aging somewhat. I mean, it's 400 years, but he's still showing his age. The brides do not seem to age, but he does. And the Ottoman Turks have been driven out of Transylvania by this time, so that's not like a concern of his anymore. His castle's fallen into disrepair. Nobody comes anywhere near it because everybody knows it's dangerous. And he wants something new. And he sees on a map, and from things he's gleaned, London. London, the heart of the world's greatest empire. And he makes plans to come to London. And so he spends like 20 years learning about it and making contacts within London. And now he's ready to buy some real estate. And so as it ends, it's going to now, the third part is obviously going to be more the Dracula story of Bram Stoker, although I'm sure Wagner is going to do some interesting stuff with it. So part 3 is The Count, and you can crowdfund, pre-order it now, which I have. The art's really gorgeous art in these things. Really nice. Just the covers, the quality of the, and I'm a guy who I actually do not get a bunch of hardcover stuff because my bookshelves are they're kind of full. So I tend to like, if I can, getting little floppies because I can throw them in boxes, and we're running out of room for those too, but not quite. Raimi Butler, if you ever come across them, Universal did some young horror novel series based on the Universal monster properties. They were good. Made in the 80s. Interesting. I'll have to look for that. Yeah. So anyways, Dracula the Brides. Good. It's a good series. If you're into the horror, like I said, man, there's gore, there is sex. They are absolutely not for kids. Like, if I was back in my early comic days, I might have found something like this in heavy metal, you know, and no, I could probably find that in heavy metal, which, like I said, they sold at 7-Eleven on the stands because I think they thought it was a heavy metal magazine, as in the music, you know. I don't think they knew what was in heavy metal magazine. So me and my buddy were like, wow, there's nudity in this thing and we could just buy it. This is really rad. We bought quite a few of them. But it was also an introduction to a lot of great comic art from Europe. So, you know, it wasn't, but yeah, we bought it because we were 13. And there were boobs. What can I say? Other thing I managed to finish reading this week, Texas Fury. Now, I picked this up at a used bookstore here in Vegas for 50 cents. And I grabbed it because it was 50 cents. And then it sat around for a little while because I had some other things to read. And I was like going, I'm not even sure why I got this book. I don't know. Did I really? Okay. I finally picked it up. It's written by Jackson Cole. Now, it's about a character called the Lone Wolf, Jim Hatfield. He is a Texas Ranger. And he did a series of books. And I'm going to tell you something. It's a good little book. It's cheap paperback novel. Like I was talking about that Dark Shadows one I reviewed. It's a solid action story. A little bit of detective work. There is smuggling going on, some other things as well. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this book. So, again, a Mobius documentary. That's cool. Cheap paperbacks. There's a place for them in the universe, folks. Texas Fury was fun. It was a fun book. It was kind of like, it was like a Roy Rogers movie, right? But there's really no cursing. It's all sort of slang cursing. But there's some violence in this that you wouldn't have gotten quite in a Roy Rogers book. I was trying to see if I could find one of the gunfights. Yeah, it'd probably take me too long to find it. But, you know, people getting shot. There's death in this thing, too. But, you know, it's mostly good guys, bad guys. Fun book. So I might look for some more of the Jim Hatfield Lone Wolf novels that Jackson Cole wrote. There's not a lot about him online. I couldn't find much. But he wrote quite a few books. And it was good old-fashioned, you know, cheap paperback novels, man. Love that stuff. All right, let's talk about a few new releases, new campaigns, coming attractions before we wrap this sweet baby up. And there's one of them I'm really jazzed about. So Kino Lorber has Scars of Dracula from 1970 coming out 4K. Blu-ray, December 9th is when this will be released. $30. I think you can pre-order it now. Used to have Zane Grey, kind of same thing. I think Zane Grey might be a more, what do I want to say? Somewhat more sophisticated author than Jackson Cole. But yeah, there's a lot of great Westerns out there, for sure. This is a Kickstarter I found. Adventures into Darkness with Doc Dinosaur and Tigress. Done by a guy named James Hansen. And they're sort of based on like pulp magazine characters. A little bit more than comic book characters, but these are comics. But they have that feel. I thought they looked pretty cool. You could get digital for $5, $10 physical. There's an example of like a page from the book, so you can see what the art style looks like. These are supposed to ship in January 2026. Dude, isn't it crazy? Like, we're not that far away. Like, I've been doing my Justice League Mondays, right? And I'm going, okay, today I'm going to record a couple of those, issue 42, issue 43. And I'm like, oh, dude, that means like I'm with issue 43. I'm in the final 10 before the end of the year because I'll be ending it right around 52. I got to look and see if 52 is like a continuation. I'll probably round it out and do a longer video, but it's like, oh my God, yeah, the year, it really is almost over. Like there's not that much left. There's really, because I do so much now on a weekly basis. Like you go, there's a lot of days left in 2025, but I'm going, okay, I got 2 more weeks in October. I got 4 weeks in November. I got like 4 weeks in December. So it's like 10 weeks. I got 10 weeks of videos left. The videos really keep things moving. It's weird. So you might want to check that Kickstarter, Adventures into Darkness. Doc Dinosaur and Tigress could be really cool. We will see. Dude, Super 7, they're not done with the Micronauts, so they got their new wave. So we got Force Commander and Microtron. I have already ordered these, but they are available now at Super 7. It's, I want to say, $50 for the pair, right around there. I really enjoyed. I'd get up, but golly, I got Baron Karza sort of stuck back there. All right, hold on. I got this dude a little closer up. Here we go, Biotron. Not as big as the Biotron from the originals. Okay, this is like 3 3/4 inch, but you get the idea. But they good quality. They did a good job on these. I really liked them, and so I was looking forward to more, and more are coming. And I at this point, it looks like it's probably going to be based pretty much on the toy line. I was kind of hoping that some of the characters from the comic might get in there. I don't think that's the case. I think they would probably, I think if they were going to do the comic characters, it would probably have to be a kind of a co-ownership thing with whoever has Micronauts now, and like Hasbro, who does the Marvel stuff. So maybe Marvel Legends could do some of those characters, but which, by the way, would be super cool. I would probably grab some of those if they put them out. So that is available right now, about the price you would expect from Super 7. And they did a good job. They did a good job with the first wave. I also saw this. Chaosium has a Kickstarter for... Now, I always said Pendragon when I was a kid. And I guess maybe it'd be Pendragon would be the right way to say it. But Pendragon, we'll call it, the role-playing game, which debuted in 85. So coming back in 2025. $99, you get the box set and PDFs of all the 6 rule books. From what I can tell, their Kickstarter could use, in my opinion, a little improvement in terms of what you get. I wasn't 100% sure, but if you are into it and you want to get that essentially original box set, we'll call it like a facsimile, you can do so for $99. I don't know what it would cost you, like on eBay, to find a complete one. Now, it's something I'd thought about buying. Some years back, I started getting into, like, I want to buy some of the classic role-playing game stuff that I couldn't get as a kid because I didn't have any money. So I got that Call of Cthulhu. I rebought Marvel Superheroes basic set, rebought the DC Heroes. Gonna do a video on that one of these days. So I rebought a few things like that. The James Bond game, because I always thought that cover looked really cool. And this is one that I want, and I had never gotten it. I still want that Doctor Who one from FASA as well. But I have to check, because I would rather get the original if I could, because it's just me, but facsimile is pretty cool. So if this is a game you were into, you have a chance. And it's, from what I can tell, it is a facsimile. They're not updating it or anything like that. Original art is being used, etc. Raimi Butler wants a ROM TV series. Buddy, I'm with you. I'm with you. That could make a great cartoon. If they did an adaptation of ROM as an animated, I mean, if they use real good animation, not the crap that they've been using lately at Marvel, but that could be badass. Just tell the ROM saga, like at least the initial one against the Dire Wraiths, before it kind of, they tried to do other things, yeah, that'd be rad. And by the way, you could bring in other Marvel heroes as well if you wanted to, because there was a lot of crossovers. But you could probably do it without those too. That would be cool. Pardon me. So there. Now, next thing up too, another blast from the past. Atari is selling a retro-looking, somewhat updated Intellivision Sprint. I went and looked. It's $150. It is you get the what do you call it? I'm old. I want to say console, modernized with HDMI, wireless controllers, and they do look like the old controllers, and 45 built-in games. Now, I don't know if it's going to be able to play older games or not, like from the old cartridges. But it's for Intellivision's 45th anniversary, $150. I had to look at it, but I'm like, I got that Pac-Man Atari coming at some point. I don't have room for it. And I got a friggin' Commodore 64 clone that I haven't even gotten to plug in yet. Oh, it does not play cartridges for sure. Okay. So that kind of sucks, but it is kind of neat though. If you grew up on a television, I don't know if you could even find too many of them that are working out there now, but I thought that was at least cool. I just love the look. I love that era of design. Probably because I was there for it. We almost got Intellivision when I was a kid. I wanted an Atari, of course, like every other kid. And so we went to, you can maybe upload games. Oh, okay, that'd be cool. Yeah. So we went to some store, I don't know, Sears or Penny's maybe. And my dad was looking at the Intellivision, and he was looking at the VIC-20. And the VIC-20 won because he's like, I don't want you just something that plays games. You get games on the VIC-20. Sadly, couldn't afford a Commodore 64. You get games on the VIC-20, but you can also learn to program, basic. And so he liked that, which I'm glad I did. Oh yeah, ColecoVision was another one. So I got the VIC-20 when I was a kid. I loved it. I still love it, but didn't get Intellivision. So I was a little tempted since I never got one. I almost got one. And I, of course, was like looking at all the games for the Intellivision. I was like, I want that. That'll be cool. No, you don't get it. You're going to have to eat your vegetables, son, and learn to program basic. But that actually helped. I'll be honest with you. Even today, though I don't program in basic, it gave me some insights into how computers think, and it has helped me in my work in troubleshooting things, just because I have that kind of core understanding of how lines of code work. Even though I couldn't do modern coding in a million years, I kind of understand how it works and how computers, how they think and how they don't think and all that. So it worked out. Just saw this before I went on stream. McFarlane, pre-order of a 66 Batmobile, 21 inches long. This is available for pre-order October 24th. So I don't know if this is designed to go with those Batman 66 figures that they've been producing for a while, or something else, or if it's just meant to be cool on its own. But if you dig the 66 Batmobile, and if it's at select retailers, who knows? Who knows which retailers? Who knows if you'll be able to end up buying the thing or not? But but it does look cool, and I'll probably take a look, but I probably won't get it. I got a Charlie's Angels van, I got a Spider-Man van, I got a Chips van, I got the Mego Batmobile, I got the old Superpowers Batmobile, one of my favorite Batmobiles really ever. I got that Blue Beetle Bug from the I got more vehicle type things than I have room to display them. they're just kind of laying around in my office. So probably won't be getting this one. But, you know, if the price is like stupid good. Oh, God, and I have an 89. I have an 89 Batmobile on pre-order. Forgot about that. So I got one more coming anyways. So, but October 24th. Now, here's the one that I'm really jazzed about. All right. So I've talked about the Lincoln Monsters on streams before. They did Frankenstein and they did Dracula. They got more of those. They're kind of 8 to 9 inch figures in the Mego style coming. They got Space Wolf. They got Lady Death. I think I showed those off in the last stream. So those are coming relatively soon. But they have now teamed with Figure Fiend. And now I have talked about Figure Fiend on these streams as well. You can find him on YouTube. The designer does really amazing, cool stuff. Go to YouTube, look up Figure Fiend, watch some of his videos. Stinking awesome, the stuff that this guy does. And so they have hooked up to produce a line that they're kind of calling the Mini Monsters. So these are 3 3/4. And some of these images on if you're watching on like a TV might be blurry. I had to snag them off of a live stream they did. They actually called it the Dead Stream, the Lincoln Monsters Dead Stream. You might want to watch it because you get to see some much clearer images of this stuff. And they talk with Figure Fiend about the designs. And I know I'm just calling him Figure Fiend because his name is escaping me. But so the idea here is 3 3/4 inches. This wave is based on the old Lincoln Toys monsters. You got Mummy, you got your Dracula, you got your Frankenstein, you got your Werewolf, you got Phantom of the Opera, and you got Hunchback, right? And then they got another wave. Oh, and here's what they look like with the card art. So it's designed to look like the old card art from back in the 70s, I think, when they were doing these initially. But they are they're painted. These are originals. They're just inspired by the original stuff. And yeah, Figure Fiend does that. This dude designs the 3D models for the printing. He has somebody sew the clothing on the figures that have clothing, but he kind of designs what it's going to look like. He does art. He does the photography. He creates fake ads for some of these characters that he builds. They're really cool. So then they're going to have another wave that are based upon, I'm trying to think if it was it World's Greatest Monsters is I think what they might have been called, that were done by, oh crap, the name of the company is escaping me. Son of a gun. At any rate, you got their version of Dracula. They actually did knockoffs of the Lincoln Monsters. So you got their version of the Mummy, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, plus the Fly, plus a Morlock with his whip. Okay. So these are 3 3/4, kind of like the old Star Wars figures, kind of like the old Rimco monsters that they put out back in the day. But the really cool thing about these is that, and there's another shot of the legendary monsters, you can take them apart. So the arms, legs, heads come off, and you can mix and match them. And they've got a lot of additional stuff planned. These are going to be a Kickstarter. Supposed to be this month, so I don't know when it's going to launch. It's supposed to be in October, by Halloween. There's going to be stretch goals for a Grim Reaper and a Phantom type or a ghostly figure. It looks really cool. And what they want to do is extend the line and do like ninjas, do some sci-fi, do all sorts of cool stuff. And it would be, you could mix and match them. The guy whose idea was a kid who grew up with the G.I. Joes. Because if you grew up with G.I. Joe figures, you know that you could technically unscrew, take them apart, and make your own characters with the G.I. Joe pieces. Back then, for an O-ring, you'd probably have to use like a rubber band, that you got real tight that would hold them together. They might be a little loose, but people used to create their own. So that's the idea here, is you can mix match things and play with them. These are going to be things that, frankly, you could get for kids to play with. I think they would hold up. They make really quality stuff. at White Elephant Toys. This is like a joint venture, Plaid Stallions, White Elephant Toys, absolutely retro, and now Figure Fiend. They make good stuff. Oh, dude, I have one of the Rimco Sergeant Rock figures up with all my G.I. Joes. Yeah, that I got way back when. They had some cool stuff for Sergeant Rock. That's good stuff. So there's another. Also, they're going to do the old. They're calling it the Monster Maker, the Reanimator. I think it's a stretch goal as well. So really, really cool stuff. I'm super jazzed about this because these are indie toy makers. This is a great idea. And to me, it's something that, frankly, could be sold mainstream. I think kids would dig this stuff, especially because you can mix and match them and be creative with them as well. I think kids would dig it. So there you go, folks. That is Dad's Den for this week, ending on the mini monsters. Coming up this week, I got Justice League America number 42. I gotta tape it today so I can release it tomorrow. It'll be Justice League America 42 and Justice League Europe number 18 from 1990, my graduation year from high school. I got a review on Wednesday of She-Wolf of London. My werewolf movie reviews have been sucking wind this October. But oh well, I'm excited about them. So I got that one, and then October Halloween week I'll have I Was a Teenage Werewolf. So that's coming out Wednesday. And on Friday, a review of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer board game. Really a cool board game. Showing that off on Friday. So that's coming ahead for Dad's Den. So we will wrap it up. Raimi Butler, Man of War, Lone Dragon, Finn's the Spook. Thank you, everybody. And, of course, Lady Wendelin, for tuning in, for getting into the chat. I really do appreciate that. Makes it a lot more fun and helps me pad this stuff out, get those extra hours watched so I can build my YouTube empire, which when you're getting like 15 views on a video, you need all the damn help you can get building that empire. I can assure you. But thank you, everybody, for showing up. I really appreciate it. That'll do it. That'll do it for today. Hopefully you'll join me next Sunday for a new live stream. God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I'll see you hopefully again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Stop streaming. Do I want to stop?